Beach Boys! How's it going, Connor?
It's good. It's Monday. Tuesday.
Yeah.
Oh, crap.
Dude, what a week since we last met.
I know. Well, yeah. Oh, my gosh. What a month it's been, I think.
Yeah. Tokens, clients, miners, hash.
Forks.
Oh, my.
We should probably wrap up. So I guess we should make a couple things, right? So we're going to try and start releasing everything on Wednesdays so that people can get into a routine. And we found out that a lot of people prefer that. So hopefully everyone likes that. And so we're going to start releasing them every Wednesday morning in the US. And we're going to try and start to structure things a little bit differently, but for maybe this episode, we're still going to kind of keep a theme of forks, I guess, kind of, right?
Kind of. Yeah. I think today we should talk a little bit just about what's happened in the space.
Yeah.
The past week.
There's a lot to catch up.
Because a lot has happened, but I think ideally this all comes back to forks.
Yeah. I think we should get some of the cooler stuff out of the way, right? I mean, there's a lot of tokens that are out there. I know we talked with Gabriel Cardona. So if everyone hasn't seen that, they should go watch it. But we talked with him, and he had a lot of, really interesting guy, but he was talking about Wormhole a lot, and Bitbox has released kind of a way to interact with Wormhole, but since then, if I remember correctly, by the time we release this tomorrow, John Fukeball will have released the simple ledger protocol. And it's not just him. I mean, there's a lot of other people involved in that. Basically, there's a lot of people associated with Electron Cash releasing that. I'm really excited about that one. Kryptonize.it released colored coins in like a web wallet, which I guess is going to also get brought into Cash Pay. And that thing works out of the box, pretty much very similar to the old colored coins proposals that are out there, but so tokens are kind of blown up on Bitcoin, BCH, and we'll definitely have to do a deep dive into all the different ones that are out there and maybe just play with them ourselves and send out some tokens that we'll have to put out some legal disclaimers on.
Yeah. They have to be registered.
I kind of, it's kind of funny because if you make something like, even if we were to make, I was kind of playing around with this idea, if we made a token and we said, if you have this token, you can for example, have like airtime on the show, we could get in a lot of trouble if we didn't actually give someone airtime, you know what I mean? So you gotta be really careful with like promises and that kind of stuff. Or we could just make $1 billion and exit scam too. So we have a lot of opportunity in front of us, I guess. But the law is still in the background. So we'll do the token stuff later. And we should also mention, since we mentioned the Kryptonize.it people, because we haven't really made an announcement on the show yet, but you can actually go to their website and buy t-shirts and mugs with our logo on it. If you want to rep the Beach Boys.
Man, I should have grabbed my mug.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, we got mugs, we got shirts.
Yeah,
I'll go ahead and pull it up for everyone so you can kind of see what we're talking about before we get too far into it. But I think we're top of the line here. There's men's and women's apparel. I think it's under both, but you can find us. We're coming.
You can only buy them with Bitcoin Cash.
Yep.
Just to clear that up for people.
We're not under men's apparel. Uh-oh. We might have been taken off the site here.
Uh-oh. Well, a lot of sales. For Beach Boy t-shirts. Whew, they're sold out. That's the problem.
That's probably it, yeah. We're Coin Shirts. So if you go to Coin Shirts, you can find our mug and t-shirts that got different colors. This is cool. Yeah, it's a cool design there. So you can come buy that stuff and get the word out about our podcast. It'd be pretty. Give us some free advertising.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll do the token stuff later, but I do want to. We should call it the tokens because there's a lot of cool stuff happening. There's even more.
That's coming fast too. Yeah. I mean, they're all coming at kind of around the same time, and for good or for bad, they're here. So
I think it's good. It'll be good in the end. Yeah,
I think it's ultimately good. Just might have some growing pains with it.
And I think there's going to be a lot of competition too. There's a lot of competition between all the protocols, so I don't know which one's going to win out. But there's definitely...
It might not even be out yet, the winning one. So we'll see.
That's what Craig said when we interviewed him. He was like, they're all shit, but I don't know what he has cooked up.
Yeah, I don't know. Kind of like Wormhole too, but we'll see. We'll see how it all ends up.
To be honest, I'm just wary about recommending any of them. Until the legal implications behind all of them are kind of out there. But
right. And with our discussion with Gabriel last week, it was kind of interesting to hear his take on it. He thought that ICOs were going to be the first kind of thing to take off with the tokens, and what that means in the eyes of the law, that is kind of, I don't know, it is scary. Because, you have so many of these ERC20 tokens now, and a lot of people view them as potential scams. What that means for Bitcoin Cash, I don't know. Like, will people automatically rule it out? I don't know. Or it might be another, one of those obstacles that we have to face again. Kind of the Bitcoin Core, Bitcoin Cash, trying to distinguish between the two, and then now we're kind of compete in that area with ERC20 tokens. How is this time different to an average user? We'll see. I think when registered securities do come, or registered tokens do come, I think that'll be an ultimately good thing, and hopefully they do come. Hopefully they come soon. So that, legitimizes it a little bit more. If they don't, that too, that works. I love the free market. So, but
yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
So I guess in the vein of competition, there's a lot of competition going on in Bitcoin Cash. So I guess we're just going to try and break through all the news and I guess the first thing we'll start with, because I think this is most likely in the background, something that's making ripple effects with all this competitive atmosphere going on in Bitcoin Cash. So CoinGeek announced that they are distributing next generation ASIC rigs, and we went through the filing for them, and we put a tweet out about this, but they're claiming that they are, if I remember have the numbers correct in my head, they're 60% more efficient than the leading chip on the market today, and 40% more energy efficient, which is very impressive. And so, if you this is just their announcement. The announcement was pretty bare bones, but if you actually go and look at the Squire filing, you can actually kind of dig into exactly what they've been filing for. But these things allegedly are going to be on the market this year, which is really exciting for a lot of people. I think a lot of people are skeptical because of, Butterfly Labs, all those things in the past, but Calvin Ayre does not seem to be bluffing on it, and they claim that this hardware will be out there later this year, and it works a lot better than what Bitmain has out there. So,
I think the timing of it too is a little interesting, with the news of Bitmain releasing about the IPO, holding 1 million tokens of BCH. It's interesting timing. I mean, the past 2 weeks have just been crazy with news.
And does the IPO confuse you a little bit?
A little bit.
I don't understand their angle at all.
I think they're trying to legitimize their their stake in the mining industry. I don't know how it's gonna pan out for them.
Yeah. I don't know. Whatever.
And I think it was kind of I don't know. Yeah, it is kind of interesting.
They
especially the details they had to release because of the IPO. To me, that was very like confidential and private information for the company.
It said that they're holding 1 million BCH.
You're right. Yeah,
which a lot of people were on the internet saying that was a bad thing. I think that's a very good thing that Jihan believes in BCH so much that he has 1 million of them.
I saw a lot of theories come out about that. About people inferring things about BCH. Like Jimmy Song. Did you see his?
He's an idiot.
I don't watch his videos, but I stumbled upon it by accident. But he said something about, I don't know, trying to drive the price down.
Yeah. I don't know. The IPO is I'm kind of curious how it goes, but it's an interesting move for sure. So
right, it definitely is.
So we can. All right. Well, let's stop speculating about Bitmain, I guess.
Well, also they're the presence that they're trying to move into the U.S. too is kind of interesting. I think they're trying to open up a plant down in Texas, and I don't know, just in terms of like American investments, it's going to be kind of interesting to see how that turns out too.
Yeah, definitely. All right, yeah. So basically, I mean, what we're talking about here really is Bitmain's got a competitor come to market, and how that shakes out will be really interesting. To make things even more interesting along these same lines, so obviously CoinGeek and nChain are pretty closely aligned with what they're trying to do with Bitcoin. nChain announced a little less than a week ago that they are releasing a full node implementation want to fully restore the original Bitcoin protocol, and they're calling it Bitcoin SV for Satoshi's vision. I just saw even today, Calvin Ayre announced that they're holding a kind of summit in a little over a week. I can't remember where it was. It might have been in Hong Kong. I can't remember, but kind of about this client protocol here, and they're going to talk about it. And I think every miner is invited. But basically, what this does, so what they announced on August 16th, which was the day after the Bitcoin ABC changes were supposed to be submitted for the next hard fork. They announced saying that they are going to do 3 things. They're going to restore more of the original Satoshi opcodes, and so it's important to note about these, right? So these are all opcodes that were in the original protocol, but were taken out and disabled. So that's an important piece of information, I guess, moving forward, right? So none of these opcodes are new; they're just re-enabling opcodes. This right here is removing the limit of 201 opcodes per script, right? So that one actually caught my attention. I've seen a lot of people talking about it. Some people that are associated with nChain have talked about why it's important to do that. I think a lot of developers are just like, do we really need to do that? But I did want to pull up here. Clemens Lay, awesome guy. We're always shilling him. This is what he said. His Bitcoin upgrade wish list was to remove or increase the limit of unconfirmed chain transactions per block and to allow non-standard scripts, right? So I kind of thought about it, first of all, the fact that there's a standard script is very Orwellian, I guess, in a way. Like what does that mean, a standard script, right? But the fact that they want to remove the limit of 201 opcodes per script probably means that there's a lot more that you can unlock by doing so. So the last thing they want to do is raise the maximum block size to 128 megabytes, which is pretty sweet, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome that it's going up, but I mean, I think both you and I stand in the same boat that ideally we would like to see this thing get taken off here pretty soon. But it's a step in the right direction. It's a step in the right direction for sure.
And I think as we're talking, I'm thinking of a lot of different things that have been thrown out there. It's been a really busy few days here.
The issue I've had a lot with that limit, the discussions around the limit, is all the people that say we don't need it now. Like, are you seeing the amount of transactions on the blockchain right now? And that's garbage, in my opinion. That's complete garbage. That's not how you run a business either. I mean, granted, you don't, stock your warehouse with a ton of stuff, but you have to make sure that you have a business plan that can scale eventually, given seasonality trends or high volume. You have to make sure that you're ready. And in regards to this size, I don't see the point in keeping it low just because we're at low transactions right now.
Well, and, like a mind-blowing statistic to me is that if we want to do a daily amount of London gold trading, you need 300 gigabyte blocks, right?
Right. And that's just gold trading.
Yeah. So if we want to get anywhere close to that, London gold trading, not even the world's gold trading.
Right, yeah.
So if we want to do this, like, it has to happen fast. So we can't just keep dragging our feet on this. So we're going to, I think, the root of what is coming here when we kind of talk about all these different proposals, like, why is the block size even there is I think, an important question, right? So before, I guess, let's kind of go through all the news, and then we can kind of talk about the merits behind what we should be doing, or what we think we should be doing. So we'll just kind of wrap this up, right? So they're saying this client will be ready for release by the first week of September, which is coming up. It will be based off of Bitcoin ABC version 0.17.2. And basically, so Daniel Connolly and Steve Shatters will be involved in the project, and they're looking for more developers, and it's going to go through a whole security audit, right? And actually, this is really cool too, that they're offering a $100,000 reward to Corey Fields, who was the person who found the ABC bug earlier this year. I thought that was a really cool offer for them to do. Because there's a whole article about that people should read if they're interested about that. But so anyway, Corey, just realized you can't even see my screen here, bud. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I got all the I got the things pulled up over here though. Too.
All right. Well, I'll share for now if you're curious.
You're sharing the screen though to the video though, right?
I am. We are recording. Yes.
Gotcha. Just wanted to make sure. Because I couldn't see it, but I just wanted to make sure the video was getting it. We're still rookies. Give us a break.
Yeah. All right, so this is announced, and so what does ABC do? This was yesterday. Bitcoin ABC announced version 0.18, and they actually announced it for download, which I thought was kind of interesting. They didn't do that last time. They actually released it to work, like, to be compatible with other clients on the testnet, and then, like, the actual download didn't occur, I think, for like at least a month later. So it's just an interesting move here where they announced that it's done and released, and you can download it. And here are the changes that they've made. So they've introduced a new opcode called opcheck data sig. that they say improves the BCH scripting language to permit the validation of messages from outside the blockchain. This will enable use cases such as the use of oracles and cross-chain atomic contracts. And it also introduces canonical transaction ordering. And so this is a technical building block that lays the foundation for massive scaling improvements in the future. And then the last bullet point here is several minor technical fixes and improvements. Then they say in the coming weeks there'll be more communications to provide more detail on the specific technical features of the upgrade. But what's most important is that they actually don't have any mention of increasing the block size. So I don't think that's part of the plan at all. I can kind of bring up maybe some of their thoughts on this. So Amaury Sachet is the lead developer, and he said specifically that ABC has a commitment to eventually remove the block size, but a lot of engineering work has to happen for this to be done safely. And part of that, I think, is where the pre-consensus stuff comes in, and then why they think canonical transaction ordering is important. But I think it's a really bold move, because if you look, there's actually a lot of debate about the transaction ordering stuff. So it was kind of, like, I think first introduced by Joannes Vermael. And if you look here, so I thought this was a good post. We'll kind of put a link to all this stuff in the descriptions, but
that'll be good.
If you look here, and this is a really good post, he kind of breaks through and talks about, like, okay, this guy, Many, I think he's on Reddit by the same name, kind of just goes through and, like, digs into what it means to change the transaction ordering, and really kind of comes to the conclusion of, like, I don't think that this is a good idea, and there's a lot of people associated with Bitcoin Unlimited that agreed with that for the most part. And then for whatever reason, I mean, it just, to me, is a very weird thing to just introduce it in ABC. I don't know. Off the bat.
Yeah.
Your thoughts are
there? I don't see it as something necessary to improve. Like, I wouldn't implement something that's unnecessary that could potentially be a threat towards changing the protocol of Bitcoin. And to be honest, I don't even necessarily understand how it works, how it improves the scaling in the future. Do you know how?
Well,
or what they're saying it does?
So I think the root of it is that what they're trying to do is, like, how can you get miners to communicate? Like, the reason why it comes down to, like, pre-consensus and stuff is that it's like, well, how can you get miners to, how can you improve propagation of blocks? How can you improve, like, I mean, from the root of it, it's like, how can you improve mining to make it more efficient? And what they're trying to do is order transactions in a way where, I mean, the high level is like, okay, can we change the way miners are interacting before the block is found to improve the propagation of blocks so that larger blocks can more efficiently route through the protocol? Now, you know, I don't know. I mean, the thing is, like, I haven't dug too deep into it, and the other problem is, like, no one else really has, which is why it's really weird that, and the people that have dug into it are like, I don't know if this is a good idea, and so it just seems weird to me that they're just kind of going full steam ahead and doing this. And to be honest with you, it kind of seems like they're just doing it because, you know, I think they're pretty upset with the Craig faction of people. And Calvin and all that kind of stuff. Right. That's what it seems like. It seems like there's kind of this war brewing between them. So that's pretty much where it's at, I think. But this is what they're doing. And the other thing, right, is this new opcode. This isn't a re-enabling of an opcode, and they don't mention they're going to re-enable the other opcodes that nChain wanted. they're just going to introduce this new one.
That's a new one, right? Yeah.
Which has some other concerns with it that seems pretty controversial. Even among, again, this is like Bitcoin Unlimited. Kind of see some of the stuff that's controversial. And what makes things even weirder to me is like, why do we need it to enable the use of oracles when, like, those Keyport guys have already done oracles? They figured out how to do oracles already.
Yeah, I was about to say that. It seems like Keyport has already shown how you can do that. Yeah.
I don't know. It's a very confusing move, in my opinion. But
right, and I don't necessarily want to bash the idea of all this because it could work, but in my opinion, it's drastic changes towards what we were trying to go for originally. When Bitcoin Cash forked, we were trying to go to the original Bitcoin, and to me, this is way different.
And why are we not increasing the block size?
Exactly.
Right? I mean,
because the volume's not there, Connor. We don't need it.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't need water right now, but...
Well, I think... So, alright, so then, again though, right? Omri's position is like, a lot of engineering has to be done for the block size to increase, right? That's kind of his position. Mm. So I thought it'd be interesting to look at, like, why did Satoshi, so if they're releasing like a client called Satoshi's Vision, like let's go back and look at what Satoshi said, right? The first thing that comes up really that we should mention is this right here. So Satoshi says the nature of Bitcoin is such that once version 0.1 was released, the core design was set in stone for the rest of its lifetime. So when you talk about introducing like a new opcode, he says, because of that, I want to design to support every possible transaction type I could think of, which, if you kind of look into script itself, it seems like he already had oracles kind of in mind there, right? Mm-hmm. Now, what else did he say, right? He also said, the existing Visa credit card network processes about 15 million internet purchases per day worldwide. Bitcoin can already scale much larger than that with existing hardware for a fraction of the cost. It never really hits a scale ceiling. If you're interested, I can go over the ways it would cope with extreme size, right? Mm-hmm. Now that's interesting. Because why is Omri saying that we need something different, right?
Right.
Like, why is he saying that it doesn't scale off the bat, right?
Mm-hmm. And I think, well, the issue is, I think, with the size is the potential threat of an attack. But I think that goes
perfect.
Back
yeah.
to this whole...
Well, that's a good next step, right?
Right. Uh-huh.
So, well, all right, hang on. Before we get into the debate, so let's also talk about Bitcoin Unlimited, because then they just came out today, and they said, where'd it go? Did they get rid of it? Interesting.
I'm just going to comment. It's good that you're reading this stuff out loud, too, because I've noticed that some of our listeners still listen to like podcasts through Google Play and Apple. So it's good that we're, I guess we still need to please that crowd as well, outside of our YouTube viewers now.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, I agree.
Just wanted to comment on that.
I kind of like this format too, where we can kind of just show stuff and you don't have to like kind of make it faces.
Yeah.
So Bitcoin Unlimited. So actually, this is Andrew Stone that kind of came out and was talking about. Sorry, I got this. Andrew Stone came out and he said, okay, So nChain, ABC announced this stuff. What are we going to do, right? Like,
yeah.
And he said it was ironic that both of them are mutually compatible, yet both groups reject the other's changes. So I actually kind of disagree with that, just because like if nChain's goal is to move back to just like the original protocol, lock it down, and stop, then these are not mutually compatible because like even if nChain was like fine, we'll also include op check data sig, then that's not really it's not really whatever. All right, so
and I don't think they're gonna budge with that either.
I don't think so either. Yeah, which is maybe why contentious thing is on the rise, right?
Right.
But so then they kind of come in. So basically, what they've introduced an idea for is like maybe what we can do is you can have the ability for canonical transaction ordering to occur, but maybe miners can vote to do so or not, right? They've really kind of taken the middle ground here, and I think even Ryan Charles kind of came out and was like, "This is probably what we'll be running for the money button because, this looks like the node that will be able to communicate with all the different miners off the bat."
Right.
A lot of interesting stuff, right? But even so, then here, right? Pretty much just kind of goes through this. They're not releasing anything yet, but they're just kind of like, again, their kind of thing is like, we're going to kind of take the middle road and make it where our client will be able to support all of them.
Yeah, I think they're kind of going the safe approach.
But really,
well, I don't know about if it's safe.
Well, it's safe, but it's like the other thing is that very little miners are actually running unlimited nodes right now, right?
Right.
Actually, so it's actually higher than I thought it was. It actually went up as of. Okay. So if you look
it
this
might
up,
be going up like recently now with all this stuff.
Yeah, so this is. It looks like they have about 32% of the nodes. ABC has 65%, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Bitcoin Unlimited really is taking the nice way out here. I think that they're probably making the most adult decision so far.
It's like a politically correct decision.
Yes, well put. And you can see here, I want to pull this up. So Peter Risen said, let's compromise for the November hard fork for BCH. Add nChain's opcodes if they're ready. Add opcheck datasig verify. Hold off on lexical ordering, which is canonical ordering. Hold off on opgroup, which is actually confusing. I got to look in the group, but I thought group was now no longer an opcode. But then he said implement BIP 101 with no cap. And so what BIP 101 is actually like Gavin Andreessen's old proposal for Bitcoin to perpetually increase the block size, like double it every X time frame. So I actually kind of like that, but I don't think. So, all right, we've gone through the proposals. Let's now talk about the block size, right?
Yeah.
Why do we have it?
Because the potential threat that it could cause. I think people are worried about spamming the network, but this sounds very familiar to something we've already gone through.
And but like we talked about it too, right? The actual, I mean, from an economic perspective, all the block says is it's a production quota on miners, right? So if the actual code itself is saying you cannot make a block over 32 megabytes like it does currently, if it says that today, then you actually would need other software to produce a block over 32 megs, right? So the software itself is putting a limit on what you can produce. If you were to remove the cap entirely, a 32 megabyte block size limit can still be enforced by the market. this is what I think a lot of people miss, right?
Right.
If you were to remove the flag that says blocks have to be smaller than 32 megs, nothing has to change, right? Because you could, for example, let's say that we're all running Bitcoin Unlimited, okay, for argument's sake. Let's go take the political correct away.
Yeah.
And Bitcoin Unlimited removes the block size completely. Okay. Tomorrow. So let's say it's today, it's 32 megabytes. You and me are the only two miners. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Tomorrow the limit is removed. And I make a block. So actually we'll need 3 people for my example. Just that for argument's sake. Sorry. So you, me, and Peter. Since we have Peter up on the screen. You, me, and Peter are the 3 miners. Okay.
Uh-huh.
If there was no block size tomorrow, but today it's 32 megs. If tomorrow the block size is removed in the software that we're all running.
Okay.
And I created a 33 meg block. You two could still in your own software say, if I see anything above a 32 megabyte block, I'm going to reject it. I'm going to orphan it. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So now 66% of the hash rate is saying, I'm going to orphan the block. I'm going to orphan any blocks bigger than 32 megs. And let's say I don't know that. So let's say I create 33 meg block, and I propagate it, and then you two orphan it. Okay? And then like a second later, you find a 32 meg block, propagate it, we all accept it.
Mm-hmm.
So now I didn't get the block reward, you did. You took my block, essentially. And so now I start mining on top of your block. Let's say I then find another block. I now have to make the decision, am I going to produce a 33 meg block again and risk it being orphaned? Right? Mm-hmm. And so really what you end up having right there is now a block size limit enforced by the market.
Right. It almost sounds very similar to zero conf in regards to like, you know, if you wanted to propagate a block more than what the hash is saying, you know, that's your risk. You're taking that risk. You could lose out. And that's the same thing with zero conf in a way. Like, it's like if you're going to go spend no fees at all, you're taking that risk that it might not go through. And not to say it's the same thing, but it's the same thing in regards to letting the market decide. And letting the miners decide, which is what we've been saying for since we've started the show, is the miners and the hash rate decides it ultimately through the competition system. But yeah, you're right though. The market could put a theoretical limit on the block size.
And so then I'm trying to find it because I think it was Peter that was talking about this with someone. Yes. All right. So he said miners are already not prevented from setting different caps, yet they all decided to set a 32 megabyte cap. By setting the same cap and moving that cap in lockstep, miners reduce risk. That's why they do it. But really what Peter's saying here is like they all decided to run software that says not to produce bigger than 32 megabyte blocks, right?
Right.
And so I guess like
issue earlier where someone's software had a limit on it and they didn't even know, or the miners didn't even know.
Yeah, like even I think it was like after we went to, like someone was running with like a 2 gigabyte limit, I think, on their blocks.
Yeah,
size, right?
Yeah.
Or sorry, 2 megabyte. I wish gigabyte. I wish I were that.
Whoa, slow down there.
I know, Johnny. Really. Oh my gosh. But I mean, like, and I think this is what's kind of frustrating because I actually agree with JBP here. He said specifically, he was like, I actually do agree. No matter how many people hate the rhetoric, like I think it is a very socialist construct. I think it's very much a facet of like central economic planning. It's like, no, we should still do this quote-unquote safely as if the miners aren't capable of doing it safely enough. And what makes me even more surprised is that we're having this conversation. You know what I mean?
In the Bitcoin Cash space, it is kind of surprising that we're having this conversation.
Yeah. It's insane to me. It's
and
absolutely insane.
Kind of makes you wonder a little bit, too. A little bit.
A little bit.
I'm not inferring anything. I didn't say it. But it does make you wonder. I don't know.
So, I agree, but yeah, Pierce's face here.
Yeah.
So you've kind of gone through all the news, right?
So, yeah. We got a couple clients, differing views. So, should we lead into what we want to talk about with forks?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I forgot about. We were talking about forks. So now what you end up having. I gotta pull this up because this is juicy drama, Corey. Unfortunately,
juicy drama. Never in the cryptocurrency space. It's unheard of.
Oh boy, this is interesting. I hate that Twitter is the thing here, but here you go. So Jihan Wu seems to be setting himself up to support the ABC faction, if you will.
Uh-huh.
And he said specifically, CSW has published his reason of against opcode in his recent article, which is, I'm guessing there's some English translation going on here that doesn't translate. His reason of against opcode in his recent article, which is the usable potential numbers of opcodes in BCH, is limited. This is ridiculous. This person must be a fake Satoshi. There is no doubt. There are about 60 empty opcode on BCH right now. It's enough. If we use all those empty ones, we can choose one of them, add a 2-byte suffix, then another 2 to the 16 opcodes will be created. We can use these opcodes to create another stronger, more secure, developer-friendly, no patent license needed financial system.
Ooh, what a dig. That last part was a dig.
So I didn't think it was... we even talked yesterday. I didn't think a fork was going to happen, actually. And I'm still not convinced it's going to happen, because I think Jihan's going to have to make a very critical business decision coming up.
I think he will have to. And I'm very interested to see what business decision he ends up making.
And I think this was the first time, I read this today, this was the first time I was like, oh, alright. we might have 2 chains, right? We actually have a chain split, right? Mm-hmm. With that said, the reason why I want to kind of frame this in forks and not forks and all this other stuff, right? So, let's say that you don't have a chain split like BTC, BCH, right?
Uh-huh.
Imagine this scenario, which to me seems like the way this should all play out. Okay.
Uh-huh.
When November 15th hits, miners should choose to run either ABC, Unlimited, or SV. Or maybe potentially something else that comes out in between now and then, right?
Right.
There's Bitprim, there's a lot of other stuff.
Yep.
If what should happen, and this is in my opinion, everyone goes, oh my gosh, hard forks are so scary, and we're going to fork and blah, blah, blah. I don't think there's actually anything wrong with November 15th comes, the miners choose which software they're going to use, and for example, I have a feeling that if CoinGeek and nChain and whoever else they're all aligned with sees a block that, for example, uses opcheck datasig, they're going to orphan the block. Mm-hmm. And I have a feeling that if ABC nodes see a block that's over 32 megs, they're going to orphan the block. And if they see a block with transactions that are using maybe some re-enabled opcodes, they're going to orphan the block. And what you end up going to actually having is miners competing for the chain.
Whoa. Competition.
Isn't that scary?
Yeah. Nah.
And so what you actually end up, like, what ends up happening here, this is what bothers me about the whole forking idea. Forks was built into Bitcoin. The entire idea of forking was built into Bitcoin.
Right.
And what actually kind of bothers me is that, like, this is how I think, I honestly believe BTC and BCH should play out this way. If you didn't give miners the out of, don't worry, there's two options, I would have hoped that miners would have, like, grown some balls and actually been like, okay, you know what? I now have to choose, am I going to pick the chain that scales, or am I going to pick the one that has, like, no hint of scaling, right? That, to me, is how the whole fork should have laid out. It should have been laid out with miners making the decisions, and it should have been laid out with competitive, quote-unquote, forking, where they start orphaning things that they don't like. For example, maybe they're going to start orphaning blocks with SegWit transactions, right?
Right. This is what makes it interesting about the business decision that Jihan might have to make.
I think
because we saw the business decision that he made previously. And did it work out in his favor? He profited short term right now. Yeah. Long term, we're still telling the tale. But
and I think Jihan is perfectly fine with another coin. I gotta be 100% honest.
See, then he sells more miners too.
It's his business.
Especially when CoinGeek has this announcement of miners as well. I mean, it's going to be really, really interesting to see what he selects. And I think I have a hunch of what he's going to select, just based on historical evidence and his short-term profit chase that he's had recently, along with this IPO. And I get it, short-term wise, but I don't think that's a smart decision long-term.
I agree.
And this kind of goes back to, the whole debate around being coin agnostic and a maximalist as well. The more coins there are, the more miners Jihan can sell. I don't know. I mean, how long are we going to be dividing up into small little tribes,
Well, and I think that's what I think I'm finding very interesting. So I actually think you're seeing a few factions emerge, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think, okay, so I'll break this down. I think, and this is just my opinion, but
yeah,
I actually think that in the case of, like, the arguments around pre-consensus and that kind of stuff, you have two factions emerging. Small-time miners and big-time miners. I think there's a lot of small-time miners that think changing the way transactions are propagated, making it easier to propagate blocks, that kind of stuff, baking that into the protocol benefits them. Because
it keeps them in the ring a little bit longer. Mm-hmm.
Yep. It's subsidization is what it is. And the same people who complain about the stress tests are just the same people who are like, hey, stop breaking my crap. You know what I mean? When it should be, hey, upgrade your crap. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And then, so I think that is, like, one issue of like, and maybe even to make things, not to be, like, controversial, I guess, but, like, Jihan is actually for the first time in Bitcoin's history having to compete. For the first time. All the core people, all that are like, oh, Jihan controls Bitcoin Cash, he controls everything. It has never been more clear than now that Jihan does not control Bitcoin Cash.
Yeah.
Roger doesn't control Bitcoin Cash. Right?
Right.
And what you're actually starting to see is, like, capitalism in action, which I think is really selfishly, It's exciting. I gotta be honest. It's selfishly pretty exciting. And I think it's going to create a better chain. And you know what I found interesting? When Vin Armani was on this show, what did he say to us? Do you remember what he said?
He called the situation of a fork, especially with a 30% miner forking off.
He did, but he also said something that I thought was interesting. Because we were talking about the whole Miner's Choice Initiative. He said, I agree with you that that this way of doing things will create long-term, allowing the free market of mining to work will long-term allow the best, most robust chain to emerge. But, he said, in the short term, I have to think about myself, I have to think about my application, my business, blah, blah, blah. I don't care about that. Like, I care about my business today, right?
Yeah.
And I think that this is kind of what's going on. I actually think that. I think people like Craig Wright, for example, I think that he's okay with, like, if the chain that he wants to build of the original Satoshi protocol, no scale limit, anything like that, I think he's perfectly fine with that chain going to $50 for a year or two. I think
it's all about growing pains, you know?
Yeah.
Going through these growing pains. And apparently some people don't want to go through the growing pains. But
you're right. And sorry, so that's the small minor thing. I guess the last thing I would say is that then there's the other factions of the coin agnostic people and the maximalists, right? Mm-hmm. I actually think that people like Jihan, and I've seen a lot of the people who are still like, I'm just saying, look out for it. Look out for the people spouting certain opinions. Do they actually believe Bitcoin maximalism is a good or bad thing? And do they think that it's a real thing? Do they think that there will be multiple cryptocurrencies? Just think about that. Because I've noticed a trend, but maybe I'm wrong. But that's what I've noticed.
Yeah.
So, we can wrap this up here, but forks, I guess, the root of it, right, is I think that there's a chance that you actually end up with like a chain. I think it's a chance like someone like Jihan creates a coin. I don't know how many people will follow him. I think he has a choice. I think he can make either unbounded, scale-free cash that follows like what like people are going to be like, oh, if anyone complains about the whole Satoshi Vision client name, I think you can kind of lay out pretty clearly that like I think they're living up to that name as long as they don't change what they're doing. I think that this is pretty clear. The nature of Bitcoin is such that once version 0.1 is released, the core design is set in stone for the rest of its lifetime. I think that actually makes this statement of we can create, like we can do all of this stuff in the future with opcodes and blah, blah, blah. I think that is completely antithetical to this statement right here.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I also want to get across too, I have no problem with ABC competing and doing this. It's the same thing that nChain is doing with Satoshi's Vision too. They don't like something, they're competing. ABC, they don't like what nChain did. Let them compete. I'm fine with it. I'm fine.
Well said. Yeah.
And because I don't want people to like twist our words and saying that we're saying that we all need to come together and kumbaya and follow the same protocol. That's not what we're saying at all. We're just saying that this is what we've been saying is it is competition. It's capitalist. I mean, we can't predict the future. We don't know who's going to win out. But, I mean, ultimately, hash drives who wins out. Yeah. And I don't think people have really thought about that before, especially on the core side. I don't think anyone in the whole cryptocurrency market has really thought about that yet either. And it's finally kind of happening where we're seeing hash and competition and drive for computing power, how that's ultimately affecting the decisions that are being made. This isn't like user activated soft forks and all this garbage that you can do on your Raspberry Pi. Yeah, I don't know. I'm glad that this is happening because I think it's the first time that we're finally seeing competition capitalist system with hash. And I'm fine with it. I am completely fine with it because I think this is ultimately going to lead to the best situation for all of us.
I agree.
The market's going to decide. Well, the hash is going to decide. Yeah. I think we're going to end up with really sound money when this is all said and done. And that's kind of one thing that you tweeted the other day also from our account. You said money needs to be stabilized in order to, be effective, be powerful. It has to stabilize. We have to stabilize eventually. We can't keep doing all these things. And it's better that we do it now and compete now to get to that system before all the volume comes. Because things like Vin saying, he's worried about his business right now being affected. Any business is going to do that as well. Any new business that joins the Bitcoin Cash network. So that's why it's good that we're doing these things now at a low volume. I think it'll ultimately lead to better and sound money, which is what this thing is supposed to be.
Yeah.
Its killer app is cash. And people need to start remembering that.
All right. Well, there's an exciting few months ahead of us, I think. So,
yeah, very exciting.
But in the meantime, like and subscribe.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be saying that.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't promote ourselves like I listen to these other podcasts and they're like, give us a share, give us a like, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our network. I don't care.
Yeah.
Nah, I do care. You guys should subscribe.
Yeah, we're not kidding ourselves. So.
Yeah, of course.
And then also go to kryptonite.it and buy our stuff. Got it up on the screen here. Or the CashPay wallet.
Buy it fast. It's going to sell out pretty quick.
And they're releasing their own token, kind of like a cashback type token on their website. So I believe that once you start buying this, you'll get tokens too. So that's pretty cool.
Yep.
All right. Well, until next week. Next Wednesday.
Yeah, it might be another jam-packed week. We'll see.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know. Or it might cool down. We'll see.
Cool.
All right. I'll see you later, Connor.
Right.
Have a good one.
You too.